Well, this is the day that Storm Floris arrives at the Edinburgh Fringe, apparently later this afternoon, but it's already raining here in Edinburgh, so I haven't done a video on my walk into town. Actually, it's getting quite puddly, so I'm recording this from become a quite kind of surrogate Fringe Review headquarters in the basement at Black Medicine Coffee in Edinburgh. And some conversations yesterday have triggered this video, which I'm going to be calling That Precious Minute at the Fringe. And it particularly relates to performance, and I think this relates to all the genres. Every single show at the Fringe, if it's particularly become relevant that you have an hour slot, which means you probably have a show at 50 minutes. Some I've noticed are 45, some 55, and they're really pushing their get out time. And that precious minute is all about what show you brought to the Fringe compared to the show that you might have had before the Fringe. And conversations yesterday were someone saying they absolutely needed to take 5 minutes out and they weren't sure how to do it. 5 minutes out of their show. That was a piece of theatre. Somebody else was saying something ran for too long and they could feel the audience kind of reacting to that. But equally somebody else said, I think we've made too many cuts. Or cut in a particular place where we ought to string it out a bit longer, we ought to lengthen it, maybe recover a bit of energy, a certain point in the story, a certain mood or impact, and that we took too much of a knife to the script and now we need to make it slightly longer, let something linger, let something flow on a bit. And that's about reshaping still within the hour slot that you might have. But I think it's an opportunity for honesty that is a part of the show that actually just needs looking at. It could be part of a stand-up comedy routine, and there is a story that I've cut too much and I need to just let it add a few more details or get to its ending a bit more slowly. And I think it's worth that, particularly if you're feeling a bit dissatisfied with the performance, with the show itself. And so that's all about saying we took the bread out of the oven a bit too quickly and we needed to let the dough prove, we needed to let the thing rise a bit more. Or it could be it's been in too long and it's just that's now burning. There's my attempt at a baking metaphor. But so I think that's around, I think I'm recording this after about 4 days of the Fringe, and it's a good time just to do that rethink. You might have also noticed it in 1 or 2 reviews if you've had them, that somebody said there's something not quite right about part of the show, part of the story, but you might feel it too. So that can be about going back to the script and simply making a cut, doing that around the table if you're debriefing, or it could be about just re-rehearsing something and just playing around with its pacing. And saying there was some information that we probably need to put back in and that will make the script less confusing, and starting to realise that maybe you compromised too much in that script. But it can also be that by cutting the scene here or the script there that you need to lengthen something else, and that's about modulating the performance itself. Again, particularly not just around pacing but around clarity of the narrative. So that's not about being defensive, that's about being honest. And you've got to be careful there that you're not bearing a grudge or carrying a grudge that when a cut was made it irritated you and you can't wait to put it back in. This isn't about ego, this is about the fact that the Edinburgh Fringe can be quite unique. And yesterday somebody said they had a 70-minute musical that they got down to 55 minutes. And suddenly what you will notice is we're hurrying over stuff, we're not letting a character develop in the way they should. That clarity particularly can be lost and you've confused the audience somewhere. It can be that you've unbalanced the cast in some way and the characters, and somebody is actually becoming more prominent and shouldn't be as prominent in relation to another character that's now become more background, and yet they've got some vital part to play in the piece. So that reveals itself, I think, when you've done a few performances. And that's to say, it requires that kind of directness, it requires that honesty. You can't get too emotionally clingy with bits of the show. You've got to be prepared to drop things in order to be able to put other things in. And it's certainly not about overthinking this, getting too intense and ending up making something worse by doing this either. You have to do it gently, but you have to do it honestly and clearly. So within that hour slot, have you cut too much? Do you need to rethink the balance between characters or the narrative itself?